Hey guys, this is Lala Legacy and welcome back to another episode of SeaBed. So let's jump right back in. We parted ways as we reached the mansion. I circled around the mansion, emerging at its front entrance. Upon reaching the parking lot, I spotted an old Japanese bike in the shade of the trees. There was not a single car in sight, though. Are you looking for something? As I began looking around, Nanai suddenly appeared from beyond the open front doors. I'm looking for Narasaki. Who? You haven't seen her? You're the first person I've met today. I see. I heard the grandfather clock in the lobby strike the hour. If you're not in a hurry, how about we have lunch together? I looked up at the sky. There were no clouds, only some dry, warm sunlight. Okay. Nanai looked out the window as we enjoyed our post-meal coffee. There's not a single cloud in the sky today. Looks like a sunburn waiting to happen. I've heard the sun is more potent in the mountains. Is that true? Ultraviolet rays apparently get stronger here because the atmosphere is thinner. But don't worry, I come well prepared. Look! Nanai rolled up her sleeve and showed me her white forearm. I've got some homemade sunscreen. Want to try it? Thanks. But I've brought my own, so I'm okay. If you say so. Nanai shifted her position, lowering her arms. I turned to the window to see her combing her front hair in the reflection. I wonder what the weather is going to be tomorrow. I was thinking of going hiking. That's nice. Should be clear weather tomorrow. Do you want to come? I do, but I'm not sure if I can make it. Nanai hid her hands behind her back and made a deeply sad face. She explained that she had to participate in a local inn proprietor meeting tomorrow from the early morning. Is that why you were looking for this Narasaki person? I nodded. Yes, she's an old friend. Can you tell me what she looks like? I'll tell her about your plans if I see her. Well, she's a tall woman with red hair. Her mannerisms and speech might come off as a bit masculine, I guess. Okay, got it. If you see her, tell her I was looking for her. I'll do that. Are you sure you don't know her? She was staying here. We're closed right now. I thought I've already told you. That's right, you did. The cafeteria door suddenly opened. I'm sorry, did I intrude? Lily stood in the entrance. Not really. Nana, could you come over for a spell? I'm sorry, I've got to go. Okay. Just leave the plates here. Okay. Nanai apologized to me and stood up. Sorry for interrupting you in the middle of conversation. That's okay, but I thought we'd... That's okay, but I thought we'd agreed you wouldn't call me Nana in front of people. We did? I could hear a bit of their conversation beyond the door. I finished my cold coffee and brought the cup to the kitchen along with Nanai's. I stood there for a few moments when I suddenly heard a ringing sound. I walked towards its source. I left the cafeteria and continued to the lobby. The big, black, and somewhat antique-looking telephone on the counter was ringing. I looked out at the sea beyond the window. The rays of the setting sun painted the interior of the train car in orange. The train car rocked back and forth as it traveled along the rails. I opened my eyes and looked around. A row of seats lined each wall of the car. An old woman and a girl. Likely her grandchild sat further away from me on the same long seat. The child was kneeling on the seat looking out the window. The old woman looked at the same scenery from the corner of her eye, her thin hand resting on her knees and a golden watch on its wrist. In front of me sat a middle-aged man in a suit reading a black notebook. A little bit further away, a high school girl in her uniform had nodded off. "That's good." I heard brief fragments of the conversation two clerks were having nearby. "You've chosen the right woman. She's smart and works hard." The other man nodded. "I'll admit her being a beaut played a role when I chose her, but I was mostly attracted to her smarts. I still sometimes feel like a child around her." The other man nodded again. "Well, the most important thing is that you're happy." The well-built clerk that had his sleeves rolled up emphasized the word happy. The tall, handsome man nodded. "We could certainly agree on that point." There was an advertisement above them showcasing a hot springs establishment. The words once-in-a-lifetime prices were floating above the steam-covered scenery of Beppu Bay. An electronic voice burst out from the speakers, announcing the next stop. Soon after, the train began to slow down with a metallic shrill. The doors opened, and a young woman in a white shirt stepped into the car. Her hair had been let down on one side, and she held a book with the words, "How to Live," printed on it. She sat down in the seat diagonally from me and opened up the book to read. The middle-aged man in a suit left the car at the next station. After 2 more stops, I was the only one left in the car. The electronic voice announced that the next stop would be the last. I stood up and got out of the train car. I stepped onto the stone platform. It smelled like dried leaves. Cool, humid sea breeze blew up the mountain slope. I heard the rustling of the grass. The station was deserted, so I walked around for a bit. I managed to make out the name of the station from the rusted, ancient-looking iron plate, but whatever was written on the backrest of the faded plastic bench, which probably used to be blue, was completely illegible. There was no one at the wooden ticket gate either. "I'm sorry, could I borrow a phone?" "Oh, whoops, this is Narasaki. Whoopsie. Whatever." I received no reply. The area behind the ticket window was completely empty. I passed the gate and walked to the ivory public phone I spotted further away. I could hear the long blades of grass rustling in the wind outside. I checked the clock on the wall, then picked up the receiver, stuck a coin into the coin slot, and turned the dial a few times. After a few beeps, someone picked up the phone on the other end. "Hello? Narasaki. Where are you right now?" "I'm at the station." "The station? What about your car?" "It's close by. I wanted to take a little detour." Sachiko's voice came a bit too loud from the receiver. I scratched my ear. "I see. Coming by car was a bad idea after all. Driving through mountain roads can completely wreck your hips." "When did you leave? You didn't say a word, so I was worried." "I left early in the morning. I didn't want to needlessly wake you, which is why I'm calling now." "I wouldn't have minded." "Being all ceremonious like that only makes it harder to say goodbye." "If you say so. But just so you know, I spent the entire day looking for you." "Oh, I'm sorry about that, but why?" "I didn't see you anywhere, so I got worried. It might sound weird, but I almost felt like you vanished into thin air or something." I let out a laugh, imagining her indignant face on the other end of the line. "I asked Nanai about you, and she said she never met you. I was worried that maybe there was something wrong happening with me again, and didn't pursue the conversation, but you were staying at the mansion, right? Did you check in with Lily or something?" "That's right. If you don't believe me, you can ask her yourself." "No, it's okay." Oh yeah, there was one thing I wanted to tell you. What? You might start forgetting things a lot for a while now. Oh. Is that related to my symptoms? Yeah, you could say it's a side effect of you getting better. It won't last for long though, so don't be worried. Just keep on doing what you always have, and you'll soon forget that or what's even bothering you. Sachiko made a pause, as though contemplating what I'd said. I waited for her to reply. Okay, I understand, she replied. When did you say you were coming back to Tokyo? In 2 days. I'll be leaving at noon. I switched the receiver to my other hand and leaned against the wall. The sound of rustling grass reached me from outside the station. I'll drop by your clinic when I get back. Your symptoms will probably have passed by then. Talking to you seems to help calm me down. Whenever you're free is fine by me. When do you think our next meeting could be? The next one, huh? There's something I want to look up when I get back, so it depends on that, I guess. Look something up? As Sachiko contemplated what I could have meant, the phone let out a clicking sound, letting me know that one of my coins had just been swallowed. I'm running out of coins. Couldn't you get more somewhere around there? Unfortunately for me, I'm stuck at this ghost town of a station. Anyway, I doubt it's going to take that long, so I'll call you back tomorrow. The same black phone? Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll call the same number I'm calling now. Let's see, you can wait for my call around 5 o'clock in the evening. 5 o'clock, same phone. Gotcha. Good. But if somehow I end up not calling until it gets dark, that means some urgent business came up. So you shouldn't waste too much time waiting. Okay, thank you for everything. Don't worry about it. We're old friends, aren't we? Yeah. See you around then. Bye! Her voice grew a bit more distant as I heard her put her receiver down. I did the same with mine. And with that, my last coin was swallowed up. Oh goodness, Sachiko is on her own again. Chapter 7. Ooh, achievement unlocked, train. Okay, Chapter 7, Labyrinth. Ah, we're back with Takako now. Okay. There was a date at the top of the page I opened the diary to. Before reading the entry, I flipped a few pages forward. The text ended after 2 pages. All I could see were the empty, ruled lines, no matter how far I went. I returned to the page with the date. There were no other dates on the following 2 pages, which made this the final entry. November 3rd, 1975. We were playing in the park behind Takako's apartment when she found the carcass of a turtle. She said it was a turtle that used to be hers. She got it during one of the town fairs and kept it in a big styrofoam box. I did recall there being a box like that on her balcony. It stood slightly tilted to the side to create different areas, one with water, another with sand. The area with water was covered in green moss, and I occasionally spotted a goldfish swimming there too. Apparently the turtle used to live there as well, but kept escaping the box all the time, although it always returned to it in the end. However, it had been 6 months since its last disappearance, and Takako seemed to have forgotten all about it until now. We dug a hole under the slide and buried the withered carcass in it, using an ice cream stick as a grave marker. We had no name to write on the stick. We simply went with Green Turtle. The discovery of the carcass left Takako heartbroken for a while, but she managed to cheer up eventually, and we played hide and seek together. Talk about nostalgic! Voicing the feelings I'd always felt when reading this thing, I continued to the last page. Only the 2 of us could have known what happened that day. As such, only Sachiko or someone Sachiko had entrusted with this information could have written this diary. Takako was very good at hide and seek, so I could never find her. And whenever I gave up and started talking about going home, she would always sneak up behind me for a quick scare. "I'm leaving!" I said that in the middle of the park with a loud voice, but nothing happened. After checking the tall grass where I expected her to be hiding, I couldn't see any trace of her. I glanced up at the orange sky, genuinely considering just leaving, but decided to look for her a bit longer. I climbed all the stairways of our apartment building. I checked all the booths in the public toilet of the park. I looked for her in the empty warehouse on the other side of the street. Most of the areas were locked, but I found a few doors that were open, so I had a peek. It was dark and smelled like dust inside. The entrance of the 7th warehouse container was open too. Takako was hiding in there. That was the same area where Takako fell when we were playing tag on the roof of the warehouse. I had the landlord, who worked at the nearby okonomiyaki restaurant, unlock the door and let Takako out. It wasn't used for anything, so we did get scolded. But otherwise got off relatively easy. Takako was crouching in the corner of the room with the orange light falling from the hole in the ceiling, illuminating her vague silhouette. "Found you! Let's go home." Yet she remained crouched. When I walked closer, I found her moaning and talking to herself. As I touched her shoulder, she let out a loud scream. The timbre of her voice was so odd, I initially couldn't even make out her words, but then realized she was asking me not to make a sound. I figured I'd ask her if she wanted me to call her parents, but changed my mind. I stooped down in front of her, careful not to make a sound. Takako was sitting on the ground, hugging her knees. Her eyes were narrowly open, but had been fixed on nothing. Her mouth trembled as she kept mumbling something. I reached out and covered her ears. I could feel her face flushing through my palms. As we sat like that for a while, her shaking began to gradually subside. She breathed heavily for a while, but that too eventually stopped. My hands were growing numb, but when I slightly moved them, she abruptly spoke up. Did you say something?" I asked her in a low voice. She didn't scream this time and seemed relatively calm. "You want me to call someone?" "Don't go anywhere. I can still hear it," she said in her normal voice. "Can you stay until it passes?" "Sure," I answered. Poor Takako. I finished the diary and lay down on the bed, facing the ceiling. That's right. I knew it. Mayuko did the same exact thing Sachiko did when my ears started ringing. Maybe she was actually Sachiko. That vague idea had been in the back of my mind for a while now. If she was the one who wrote that diary, then it made perfect sense that the parcel came with it had no return address. But why would she do that? Why was this happening? No matter how hard I thought about it, I couldn't come up with an answer. I felt like I'd been forgetting something important. Or perhaps it was just my memory devouring illness acting up again. A headache assaulted me when I tried to focus on that corner of my mind. I shook my head and absent-mindedly looked around the room. I remembered what I saw in Kozue's room. That was definitely Sachiko in the dark, cave-like place. I only saw her from behind, but I would recognize her anywhere. But she had long hair while Mayuko's was relatively short, which meant they were two different people after all. The more I thought about it, the more confused I got. I let out a sigh. I closed my eyes and tried remembering Sachiko's face in that darkness. But the area around her eyes remained dark, so I couldn't visualize her well. At this point, I felt like I might have been hallucinating that my mind had created. That it might have been a hallucination. Sorry, I am reading this all wrong. That my mind had created in response to my wish to see her again. I opened my eyes, picked up the notebook, and looked at the trace left by the pages having been torn out. It didn't particularly stand out, but it wasn't insignificant either. I got curious about what they contained, even more so than before. Maybe they could have helped me discover who wrote the notebook. There were too many things at the sanatorium I couldn't understand. My illness, Sachiko, the phenomenon in that dark room. I hoped the notebook would provide some answers, but all it did was leave me with more questions. But honestly, that is all the time that I have for this episode, guys. So, if you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up down below. And if you haven't already, subscribe. By subscribing, you're becoming part of a legacy. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!